Well, folks, it's not the end of the world. I've been saying from the get-go that you have to give this team 25 games before there is a hint of a panic button, before there's a hint of genuine concern. Obviously, there is concern over the fact that the Warriors remain winless this late in the season. They haven't done this poorly on the road since 1989. I mean, that's going back through some horrid Golden State Warriors eras, folks, but I'm still not hitting the panic button. I'm confident that Klay Thompson is going to turn things around. I'm confident that Steve Kerr is going to figure things out. And we're going to break down that loss in Sacramento. I'm going to preview tonight's Spurs game and discuss why I personally think right now the blame is on Steve Kerr, and I'll explain why. But again, look, we're only 13 games in. Things can change. There is no panic buttons being hit yet. I'm not hitting a panic button. This team's been through a lot worse than this. We'll break it all down next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRocho. Kylan Mills was supposed to join me today. Last minute absence. Look, life's hard, man. And she's dealing with something that just happened. I'll let her announce it on her end. It just sucks when you lose people that are very close to you. I'll leave it at that. But I hope Colin's okay. She'll join me again soon. But look, I got you folks. I'm going live. I got the chat overlay open. Gregors says all the best from Poland. Thank you. Right back at you, man. Coach Clay comes at me with Curry for MVP. So far, yes, because even though the Warriors are 5-8 to start the season, I think they'd be 0-13 without him. Maybe 1-12. I don't know. Curry is been the only light so far really on this season. But again, it's so early. And I'm going to break down again what went wrong in that Kings game last night, what Steve Kerr has to do to turn this ship around. And there's reason for hope. Let's obviously start with last night's game. All right. They lost 122-115 to a Sacramento Kings team that is actually okay. This is the best iteration of the Kings we've seen in decades. Mike Brown so far is doing a good job. The Kings have improved to 500 on the year. That is not a team to scoff at. But with that said, the Kings are a team that the Golden State Warriors, the defending world champion Golden State Warriors, should have won. And the Golden State Warriors should not be 0-7 on the road to start the season. Kylan, by the way, just texted me. Yeah, she said it's okay if I explain what happened. One of her close friends from her childhood passed away, and that's just awful news. So keep her in your thoughts, please, because I've lost people who are close friends of mine, and even beyond that, close family from my childhood who was young, and it's a horrible thing to experience. So, Kylan, I hope you're doing okay. But the Golden State Warriors, all right, look, I don't know what's going on with this rotation where Steve Kerr is adamant to not play the youngsters. Kerr alluded, this was, I believe, in the pregame. So Steve Kerr does interviews before every game. He makes himself available. I think all coaches do. And someone asked him about Moses Moody because of the 3 lottery picks that are not playing or are playing really low minutes. Moses Moody is the one that is the biggest bewilderment, right? It's the one that makes, I mean, none of this to me makes sense, but I'm hearing a lot of people in Dub Nation and beyond saying, well, Kuminga is, he's looks lost out there sometimes. And James Wiseman, I'm hearing a lot of criticism about him. I've I've heard people allude to his quote unquote motor, which is, I mean, and the fact that he might not have the quote unquote motor to be great in this game. Look, whatever that metaphor means, if you're referring to his motivation, if you're referring to his spirit, I don't buy that. I don't think you can make that assessment this early in Wiseman's career. But the Moody thing is really, really baffling. And Kerr said, and I'm going to read this some of these quotes verbatim in terms of why he's not playing. Kerr said, quote, "I'm really confident in Moses, and he'll find his way back into the rotation. I've talked to him about turnovers and fouls. That's the big thing. When you're a young player trying to find a role, it's really important to just be solid," unquote. And he said this before the Kings game. Now, I didn't know Moses Moody had a problem with committing fouls. I didn't know Moses Moody had a problem with turnovers. This was like news to me when he said that. And I looked at the analytics, and there's nothing alarming there. He's averaging 1.4 turnovers per game. Not great, not horrible. He's averaging 1.2 fouls per game. I don't see anything wrong with that. And this is in 17 minutes of play. So if he was playing 34 minutes, he'd be averaging 2.4 fouls per game. I don't get it. The Moody thing is weird to me. All of this is weird to me. But again, and Anik, who comes out and says, Kerr said Moody fouls and turnovers the balls a lot, which is true. It's not true. I just literally read the stats. He averages 1.2 fouls per game. The turnovers, yes, that could be brought down a little bit. But newsflash, folks, the Warriors without Moody are still turning the ball over plenty. So I don't get the Moody thing. I hear Kerr's reasoning, and it just makes me more confused. Here's what I want to bring up in terms of why I think the Warriors youngsters have to play. I'm looking back to the game. I don't have the date of it, but it was the last game of the road trip when the Warriors played the New Orleans Pelicans. And remember the game before, this was the second half of a back-to-back. They lost to the Orlando Magic. And Kerr, after that game, said, "I'm going to start playing everybody. Okay, the rotation is wide open. Everyone has a chance." Clearly not true. And then the very next game, he benched Curry, he benched Clay, he benched Draymond Green, and he benched Andrew Wiggins. And so the Golden State Warriors are playing the New Orleans Pelicans, a team that a lot of people think could go very far. The Pelicans were healthy. They're a very deep team. They're a veteran squad that has superstars on that team. Zion Williamson, obviously, is the biggest name, but you can go down the list for that team. I mean, they got CJ McCollum. They got Brandon Ingram. And you know how the Warriors did in that game? They did great. Jonathan Kuminga played 38 minutes in that game and finished +2 in the plus-minus. He had 18 points, 4 rebounds. Jordan Poole, who, I mean, he needs consistency in his game. That remains lacking. I mean, I'm yelling at the TV when he's playing. Calm down, dude. Slow it down a little bit. He did good. He had 20 points in that game, had 9 assists, which merely confirms what I've been saying all along, that he should and could play the point guard role on this team. It's a much better fit for him than being your shooting guard. Moses Moody in that game played 32 minutes, scored 14 points, was +10 in the plus-minus. Led the team. When Moses Moody was out there in that Pelicans game, the Warriors outscored the Pelicans by 10 points. James Wiseman in that game. This is the last time we've seen Wiseman, by the way. Haven't seen him once since. He played 17 minutes in the first half of that game, had 5.6 rebounds, was only -3 in the plus-minus. And what does Kerr do in the second half of that game? A game where, by the way, the Pelicans beat them largely because Larry Nance Jr. was eating them up inside. He went 10 for 12 from the field, was just having his way inside. You needed a bigger player like Wiseman out there. So what does Kerr do in the second half of that game? 0 minutes. Played him 17 first half minutes. Wiseman was doing okay. He was doing good. He had 5 points, only had 1 shot attempt, but he had 6 rebounds. He was only -3 in the plus minus. They need time. They need reps. The Warriors lost that game, but it was close against a Pelicans team that is stout. So I don't understand what is going on with Kerr not playing the youngsters. It's on one hand, look, if the Warriors were winning without him, I get it. Your strategy is working, sort of. I don't think it's, and there's another huge point here to address, which is that why are the Warriors playing the veterans that they're going to need for the postseason push so many minutes this early in the season? And it's just baffling to me. I'm trying to see that on the chat if there's anything here that I need to address, but I just don't understand it. I don't understand what Kerr is doing. And look, maybe this is a colossal weakness of his, is developing youngsters. I wrote something on Twitter, a platform which I completely despise, but in fact, the huge reason why I use it nowadays is because I use it almost like a notepad. I tweet things and then go back to it for my shows. And maybe I can come up with a better method, but whatever. Excuse me. On Twitter, I said, I don't know if I don't think Kerr's ever developed anyone into a star. Jordan Poole's like the closest thing. People mention Kevon Looney. I love Looney, but he's not a star. He's never going to make an all-star team, or very unlikely. But the way he's handling these youngsters, I don't get it. Okay. The team is 5-8. They're 0-7 on the road. They made a conscious decision this offseason to not add veterans to replace Gary Payton II, Otto Porter Jr. They made a conscious decision to rely on these 3 youngsters and develop them. And they're not playing them. And again, the only time we've seen real minutes, and, you know, Galen Callahan writes, I love Kuminga, but last night, every time he came in, the team went down. Did they? I mean, you know how he did in last night's game? Well, let me see his stats from last night's game. He was only a -4 in the plus minus. To put it in perspective, no one was in the positive. No one. Stephen Curry was the only player, I'm sorry, him and DiVincenzo were the only players not in the negative. All right. They finished with a 0. So when Curry and DiVincenzo played, it was even Steven. But everyone else who played, Andrew Wiggins, plus minus -15. Anthony Lamb, plus minus -7. Kevon Looney, plus minus -4. Jonathan Kuminga, in only 14 minutes of play. That's all he played, 14 minutes, because Kerr clearly doesn't trust him. He was a -4. He had 3 points. I thought he did okay. I don't see him being this huge liability. And I think Trey Underwood makes a point that has some truth to it. Kerr and the coaching staff have to build a system for the youngsters. It's becoming clear they're struggling to adjust to it. That I agree with. And I actually want to say something when we come back from Draymond Green. Draymond Green actually made a comment in the post game alluding to the bench's struggles. And I don't know if it was a prescient point. I don't know if it was astute, but it was certainly interesting. And I want to touch on that and obviously read everything else people are submitting today. And also want to shed some positivity because, again, I don't think this is a doom and gloom situation. But what I do think is that the sooner you start playing these youngsters, the sooner they are going to figure it out so they can help you in March, April, and beyond. All right? That is my grievance here, is that right now you're losing games, and in the process, you're giving the veterans heavy minutes. Heavy. I mean, you're not supposed to be wearing them down this early in the season. Draymond and Wiggins had 34 minutes last night. Steph had 37. Clay had 32. They should be playing less minutes to preserve their bodies, and the youngsters should be playing more minutes to develop their games, ease the pressure and burden off the veterans, and gain valuable reps so they're ready for the postseason. I don't get why Kerr is DNPing them. I just don't get it. I do not get any of this because they're losing despite the fact. First, I got to give some love to LinkedIn. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. I got to get an overlay for them as well. Where are you? Right here, overlay. There we go. Right alongside the chat. Look, These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. And folks, if you're looking for work, LinkedIn is the best resource available for you. For employers, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. I want to see what's going on in the chat. Anything? So Steve Wilton writes, explain to me what Lamb brings to the team that Moses Moody doesn't. Can't explain it. I don't get it. I have nothing against Anthony Lamb, but it continues to drive me up the wall that Lamb, and I'm with, now look, we haven't seen Ty Jerome in a couple games because Dante DiVincenzo's back, thankfully. I have nothing against Lamb. In the Warriors win against the Cavaliers, he was outstanding. Last night against the Kings, not outstanding. I do not understand why Kerr is not giving Moody minutes, and to a lesser extent, Kuminga and Wiseman, because you need them. At a bare minimum, Kuminga is a 6'8" player with tremendous athleticism. James Wiseman is a 7'1" athletic freak. Why are you not keeping things simple for them and giving them minutes so they could help the veterans? I don't get it. Coach K writes, trade and develop everything else. Now, here's the problem with that idea. And this is where the Warriors are stuck in a bit of a rut. They don't have a lot of value. Maybe Kuminga does. I actually have no idea what his value is right now. You'd have to do a survey or you'd have to talk to some other GMs. Wiseman does not have a lot of value right now, though. You almost can't trade him. You're kind of stuck with him. And Totes McGoats writes in response to Anthony Lamb, threes and scrappiness. Yeah. I have nothing against Lamb, but the only thing about him that I take some issue with is that he's taking minutes away from Moody, Kuminga, Wiseman. So this is a quote that came from Draymond Green, and I'll actually, in fact, share my screen for the YouTube viewers so they can read this quote while I'm reading it. And for the podcast, obviously, I'm going to read this out loud so you can hear Draymond Green's comments. So this was after the game last night. I'm guessing this was in the post-game presser. Draymond was taking questions from reporters, and he was asked about the bench. And here's what Draymond said, quote, for the most part, we had elder statesmen coming off the bench, if you will. They would come off the bench to slow things down, right the ship. It's different now when you come off the bench. The reality is the first guy that usually comes off the bench is JP. JP, Jordan Poole, is a sixth starter. That's a different feel. When you're starting to get more guys in and it's turning into the second unit as opposed to the first unit guys, it used to be kind of a different offense. It's more like it used to be that when Steph goes out of the game, the whole offense changes with more sets. With Jordan, it's going to be more of the same as you get with Steph. I think guys really have to adjust to that, and it's taking some time to adjust to that. For the majority of those guys, they don't know what it is to play a lot with Steph, so they don't really understand that, as opposed to when Jordan comes in with us, we've played with Steph for so long, we understand the randomness of it. I think that the group needs to start understanding the randomness of it. Like I said, that takes time. And actually, there's a clip right here. I wonder if that's with the feed.
It's a lot different. For the most part, coming off the bench, we've had kind of an elder statesman, if you will, and that'll come off the bench, kind of slow things down, right the ship. And it's different now, where you come off the bench, and the reality is the first guy you come off the bench with is usually JP, and JP is a sixth starter, and so that's a different feel. And I think when you're starting to get more guys in there and it's turning into the second unit as opposed to more of the first unit guys, whereas it used to be a kind of a different offense, if you will, it's more like the same. And I think we have to figure that out in that second unit and understand that, what you're accustomed to is Steph go out the game and the whole offense changes and it's more sets and this. But with Jordan, it's still going to be more of the same as you get with Steph. And I think guys have to really adjust to that, and it's taking some time to adjust to that. Because for the majority of those guys, they don't play a ton with Steph. So they don't really understand that. Whereas opposed to when Jordan comes in with us, we've played with Steph for so long, we understand the randomness of it. I think that group has to start understanding the randomness of it. But, that, like I said, that takes time.
So I think what he's trying to say is that because Jordan Poole is such a free-willing player like Steph, that unlike past years where in the old parts of the dynasty where you had like the Sean Livingstons, Iguodala in his prime, last year, Otto Porter Jr., these are players that did not play at so much of a frenetic pace. Whereas now, according to Draymond Green, because Jordan Poole is the sixth man, and because he does play at a frenetic pace, he's saying that the rest of the team is not adjusting to that. I don't know. I thought that's what practice was for. Not to mention, like, how can anyone adjust to it if the bench rotation is different every game? Look, here's one last soundbite I'm going to play. This is from Steve Kerr. This was after the game last night, explaining what went wrong for the Warriors and why they lost the game. Here's Kerr.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're a good team. They're a really well-coached team. They make it tough on you. They got a lot of shooting. And I thought in the second quarter it was the turnovers that hurt us. We weren't executing well offensively, and that hurt our defense, put us on our heels some. We had that 15-point lead, and then it evaporated pretty quickly. So too many turnovers in that quarter, and then the third, they just got going, and we made some mental errors. We helped a little too much off their shooters. They got a couple of big threes. One at the end of the third quarter was a big one. But I think again, our guys fought and competed, and I love the effort, but just got beat by a team that played better than us tonight.
Yeah, and he was right about the turnovers. The turnovers were absolutely atrocious. The Warriors turned the ball over in that game 18 times, which resulted in 26 points for the Kings. So when you consider that the Warriors lost this game by 7, the turnovers were just pure evil. But again, bigger picture, the Warriors play the Spurs tonight. And in fact, I have to give some love to BetOnline. I think that's our other sponsor for the day. It is. Let me get that overlay. Oh, beautiful. Look, betonline.net. They're your number one source, excuse me, for sports betting information, stats, news, and analytics. And in fact, I want to look up what the line is for tonight's Warriors-Spurs game. Interesting tidbit from that game. The Warriors have the worst defense in the NBA in terms of points per game given up. The second worst is the San Antonio Spurs. So I'm curious to know the over-under for that game is 233.5. I would bet the over on that. The Warriors are favored by 7. I would not touch that. I have no idea how tonight's game is going to go. I just hope the young players play. I just want to see them play. I want to see them develop. I want the fans to go along for the ride. This Kerr's rotations are driving me insane. Whatever. BetOnline.net. They provide the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today, every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Again, Kylan Mills, it really sucks. One of her closest friends growing up passed away. So in case you folks tuned in and were wondering where she is not here with me today. She might join me tomorrow, depending on how she feels. So thanks for putting up with me. I want to see what's going on with the chat here. AJ Simpson writes, if I got your name correct, I'm with you. If we're going to lose anyways, allow the young boys to grow and watch film and correct their mistakes. Absolutely. That is my entire point. Thank you for nailing it to the T. Totes McGoats writes, Poole must play his own game, not just copying Steph. Yeah, I mean, if that's what he's doing, yeah, I agree. But look, this is my proposal. I proposed this a week ago. And I believe very confidently that if the Warriors do this, they're going to be okay. I really do. And what I propose, and I've proposed this before, and I'll propose this again, is that the Warriors need to start Wiseman, and they need to start Moody, and then they need to move Clay and Looney to the bench. And this way, you're surrounding these youngsters with veterans who can hopefully guide them. You're minimizing the damage from their mistakes by hopefully having veterans out there to pick up the slack. And all the while, you're giving these youngsters time so that they can learn. Learn as you do is the most adept way of learning. It's the most effective form of teaching. And they're not learning as they do because they're just sitting on a bench rotting away. I just don't get this. And it's kind of sad that like every person who disagrees with me is on Twitter being a keyboard warrior, and no one ever wants to have a interpersonal communication type discourse about it, because I don't think you can. I don't know how you can defend Kerr and how you can defend any of these youngsters sitting down. Gregors writes, our three-point shooters can create a lot of space for Kuminga, Wiggins, and Wiseman. Kerr needs to adjust the strategy. I agree. So, and again, look, if you're frustrated, Dub Nation, I'm with you. Okay, like this is just absolutely maddening. And Steve Wilton writes, nice idea, but according to Dre, the offense is different for the second team. How could Clay and Loon possibly adjust to that? That Dre quote was weird. I just don't even, I don't even know what to make of that. I don't know how that makes sense. Because if the problem is he's basically blaming like Jordan Poole's style of play for the bench struggling. Poole came off the bench in the playoffs last year. Part of me wonders if even they're confused by all this. I don't know. Coach K writes, how does me and Size see the obvious adjustments, but Steve Kerr and his whole coaching staff can't come to the same conclusion? Here's my theory on that. My theory is that I think, and all I can do is theorize and hypothesize because Kerr's not revealing any specifics here in terms of the why, but I'm guessing this is his way of motivating the players to be more aggressive. My guess is Kerr is not seeing the type of energy, is not seeing the type of hunger that he wants, like the urgency that he wants from these lottery picks. And maybe he's right there. All right. But he's not seeing it, and it's pissing him off. And now where he's making a mistake, I think, is that he's benching them to hopefully make them get pissed off about not playing so that when they do play, they play with a sense of urgency. But where that strategy goes wrong is that these players need experience. Like, instead of having them sit there stewing that they're not playing, have them go out there and let them learn from their mistakes and learn on their own that they need to be more urgent, that they need to be more aggressive to succeed in this game. Not everyone learns just by being told, right? Some people have to learn from their own mistakes, and these youngsters are never going to do that if they're not playing. So, I'm guessing that's what's going on. But again, this is not resulting in anything positive for the Warriors because they're now 5-8. They're 0-7 on the road. They're playing their veterans way too many minutes this early in the season. Well, and Lalo writes, so basically what you're saying is they don't have the dog in them. I'm saying that's the only thing I could think of that is making Kerr do this. And if that's the case, look, some players have to get the dog brought out of them, and that's not going to happen if they're just sitting there. They have to play. And yeah, we'll see how it goes tonight against the Spurs. And again, and this is where like a lot of people, Cav P writes, I can't believe he benched Moody when he's been taking charges instead of fouls and his defense is good. I agree. I mean, the Moody thing really makes no sense. I think Kerr just ultimately does not trust young players. He just has a hard time trusting them, but you're going to have to. This is what you and Bob Myers created. This is you literally formed this roster, right? Like I know Kerr is not the GM, Bob Myers is, but those two talk almost every day. They are simpatico in terms of every decision made for this team, from free agents to draft picks. And Kerr is clearly involved in everything, and that includes this roster construction. He signed off on a bench that was going to be reliant largely on 20 and 21-year-old lottery picks. And then he picks this roster and then decides I'm not going to actually use it. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. So, and Jackson J writes, if they are messing up so much in practice, you play them. That's rewarding them for bad play in practice. But that's the thing. We don't know if they're playing bad in practice. Andre Iguodala has said repeatedly, and so have other players, and even Kerr. Kerr's never once said that they're playing bad in practice. They've all said they're doing great in practice. So either they're lying, or Kerr thinks they're doing fine, but he just doesn't see the urgency, or maybe, I don't know. This is why I'm going crazy, because I don't know. None of this makes sense. I want to finish it on this note, though. Klay Thompson, when he gets it going, and I am so damn confident of this, folks, so damn confident. I have faith in Klay Thompson. I don't know what to tell you. A lot of people are losing faith in him. I'm saying don't. He will figure this out, all right, in terms of his offense. Because what happened last night toward the end of that game is Mike Brown decided to double and triple team Stephen Curry and dared someone else on the Warriors to beat them. Great strategy. Why wouldn't you do that, right? That's where Klay Thompson needs to light it up. And his shot is not there yet. And I'll say this time and time and again, his conditioning is not where it needs to be, for the simple reason that most of his three-point shots are lined up fine, but they're routinely clanging off the front of the rim. Sometimes they'll hit the front of the rim and bounce over. Sometimes it'll hit the front of the rim and stay short. That's a sign of an individual who does not have his legs under him yet. That will happen. That will happen. And when that does happen, that's going to change a lot of things. A starting five for the Warriors that is already #1 in the NBA in plus minus is only going to get that much better. But that's also why, and maybe you got to wait for Klay to get his footing to do this. That's also why, though, I think maybe it's time to bring Klay off the bench so that he can play with some of the youngsters, but you'll obviously close the game with him. But you just have rotations throughout the game where he's surrounded with Kuminga. He's surrounded with Wiseman. You have Looney out there maybe showing support, or, for you're right, Totes. His shot is mostly flat, and that's largely a current thing. And that's why I'm not worried about him. He will get his conditioning. Again, professional athletes are creatures of routine, and Klay's entire season routine was disturbed, shattered, because he couldn't play pickup basketball. That was months of conditioning that he just did not do. So he's still trying to catch up with that. Coach K writes, I'm subbed to the GSW practice channel, and they look even more amazing in practices. It's just Kerr's rotations are terrible, and he has a track record of not tolerating young players. Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. And I agree with Energy Manifest that the second greatest shooter in NBA history, referring to Klay Thompson, will get it together. I wholeheartedly agree. So my point is, I'm not hitting a panic button yet because, again, that Pelicans game, I know the Warriors have won 5 games. I know Stephen Curry is on a torrid pace to start this season. I love watching him play, but maybe I'm a weirdo. I actually know I'm a weirdo, but in this case, I know I'm a weirdo that Pelicans game was wildly entertaining for me because I saw the future of the Warriors playing great ball. They played great that game. That's why I don't understand Kerr, immediately just yanking the leash on these guys. He played him for one game. Look, I know they lost that game, but it was a damn close game They were in it until the very end. They almost beat the Pelicans with a squad that did not have Steph, Clay, Wiggins, or Draymond Green. And I really think if Wiseman played that second half, they would have won that game. But that's just me. I think I have faith in these youngsters is what I'm trying to say. I think they actually are talented. And I'm just perplexed that they're not playing, that they're getting these DNPs. Totes McGoat says, I believe in the 9 rings, and referring to Steve Kerr. I do too. Okay. He does eventually figure it out. How many times has Dub Nation been frustrated at Kerr during a postseason run? Remember, think back to the NBA Finals. Remember Kerr deciding not to play Gary Payne II, and they lost, and everyone was harping on him. And sure enough, Gary Payne II played the next game, and he was back, and all of a sudden things normalized. Kerr eventually figures it out. Just sometimes he's slow to it. What are you going to do? And I really think Klay Thompson's going to figure it out, and that's going to change a lot of things. So yeah, I just hope tonight we see the youngsters. We're not going to see Clay because he's not playing in back-to-backs. Stephen Curry said he is going to play in the Spurs game. I still don't know if Draymond Green's going to play, but I just want to see these lottery picks. I want them out there. Coach K writes they should have traded for Kevin Durant. It was there. It was there. I don't think it's there anymore. I don't know. Yeah, this Warriors team with Durant would have been a beast. That's for sure. Yeah. So unless there's anything new in the chat, that'll be it for today. No Cap is jumping in here saying, I've been on the trade machine all morning, and I believe they're going to make a trade at the deadline. Jermichael Green, that's another weird one. Those DNPs are sticking out. I don't know why he's getting DNPs. I know he's not quite living up to the potential to what they were hoping for to get out of him, but he's not a bad player. He can still play defense and rebound. I don't understand the DNPs from him. But No Cap writes, Jermichael Green and Dante DiVincenzo are not Otto Porter Jr. and Gary Payne II. You are correct there. They're not producing, nor are the rookies. Well, again, the rookies have to play. If they're not even playing, how can they produce, right? So, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I'm really sorry that a lot of this is negative right now, but they're 5-8. They're 0-7 on the road. The 0-7 on the road thing is particularly alarming, given none of those Warriors teams in the 90s or 2000s did that. The last time the Warriors did this was 1989. So there's some concern. Things are not going great right now. But the good news is there's plenty of time to turn it around. And I do have faith that Steve Kerr, who, yes, with his 9 rings, 5 as a player, 4 as a coach, will figure it out. It's just he's never developed a young player into a superstar. So this is probably a learning experience for him as well. I wish he would start playing the youngsters and just dealing with the bumps that come with that instead of dealing with these bumps, which just suck because you're getting nothing out of these losses right now except expending energy from your veterans. At least if you're losing with the youngsters, you're giving them experience. Yeah, and Trey Underwood, I agree. The leash is just too damn short. But thanks, Totes. Enjoy the rest of your day as well. Thank you, everyone. And I think Kylan Mills is going to join me back tomorrow. I hope she does. I miss her. Yeah. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Go Warriors tonight against Spurs. Later.